Weakness doesn't arrive in your life like an intruder kicking down the door. It doesn't warn you. It doesn't announce its intention. It slips in quietly, disguising itself as comfort, as rest, as "I'll do it tomorrow." And before you even realize it, weakness has wrapped itself around your habits, your discipline, your ambition. That is why the very first step to becoming the man you are meant to be is to recognize that weakness is not just a flaw. It is an enemy, a silent, patient enemy that waits for you to slip even once. Because the moment you allow even a small weakness into your life, it grows, it spreads. It takes over every part of your identity. Imagine a man waking up every morning and telling himself that he will start tomorrow. Imagine a man who knows what he needs to do, but chooses the easy path, the soft path, the path of least resistance. That man doesn't lose his strength all at once. He loses it moment by moment, decision by decision, excuse by excuse. He becomes a shadow of the man he could have been, not because the world defeated him, but because he quietly surrendered to weakness. You must understand something very clearly. Weakness destroys greatness long before failure ever does. Failure can build you, shape you, sharpen you. Weakness drains you. Weakness convinces you that you don't need to try. It convinces you that comfort matters more than purpose. It convinces you that you have time, when in reality the clock is ticking faster than you think. Every truly powerful man you've ever admired had one thing in common. He rejected weakness before it had a chance to root itself in his mind. He didn't negotiate with it. He didn't let it speak. He didn't let it linger. He understood that the only way to build a life worth living is to destroy every form of weakness the moment it appears. Weakness is waking up and choosing sleep over progress. Weakness is knowing you should work, but choosing distraction. Weakness is letting your emotions dictate your effort. Weakness is accepting the bare minimum when you are capable of the absolute maximum. Weakness is letting the world push you instead of you pushing the world, and the problem is not that weakness exists. The problem is that most men accept it as normal. They think laziness is normal. They think softness is normal. They think living without discipline is normal. But none of that is normal. None of that is masculine. None of that leads to anything worth having. You must reject weakness in every form it appears. The moment you feel yourself slowing down, you push faster. The moment your mind whispers, "Rest," you whisper back, "Not yet." The moment you feel overwhelmed, you stand up taller. Weakness thrives when you submit. Strength is built when you resist. You cannot build a powerful life while acting like a powerless man. You cannot build a warrior's mindset with civilian habits. You cannot demand respect from the world while you disrespect your own potential. Weakness is not something you tolerate. Weakness is something you fight. Every day, every hour, every decision. There will be days when you don't feel like it. Days when it all seems heavy. Days when you look at your goals and feel small. That is exactly when weakness tries to take over. But that is also the moment that defines your future. If you reject weakness in that moment, you train your mind to obey you. If you give in, you train your mind to doubt you. This is the truth most men will never hear. Discipline is not built in perfect moments. Discipline is built in the moments you want to quit. Strength is not forged in comfort. Strength is forged in resistance. A man becomes powerful the same way steel becomes strong, through pressure, heat, and force. And if you want to live a life that demands respect, if you want to build a legacy that outlives your name, if you want to transform into the highest version of yourself, you must treat weakness like the enemy it is. You must reject it ruthlessly, aggressively, unapologetically. Because the moment you allow weakness to live in your life, it begins to kill everything else. When you wake up in the morning, before you even touch your phone, there's a moment where your mind is clean, untouched, uncorrupted by the demands of the world. That moment reveals something important, whether you are proud of yourself or disappointed in yourself. Weak men dread the mornings because the silence exposes their lack of discipline. Strong men embrace the silence because it reflects the evidence of their effort. And this is exactly where most people fail. They allow weakness to take root during the smallest, simplest moments of the day. The first decision, the first thought, the first action. Weakness doesn't arrive shouting. It arrives whispering. And men who ignore that whisper eventually watch their entire life crumble. You must understand that weakness is never passive. It grows. It spreads. It infects everything it touches. A man who treats his own standards casually will treat his entire destiny casually. A man who tolerates small excuses will one day build his entire identity around excuses. Weakness is not a moment, it's a pattern. And the only way to break the pattern is to reject it in every form the moment it appears. Weakness doesn't start with big failures. It starts when you hit the snooze button. It starts when you lie to yourself about going to the gym tomorrow. It starts when you say, just 5 more minutes, because you're tired or unmotivated. Those tiny concessions become the foundation for a life you'll eventually despise. But here's the truth they don't tell you: the world is designed to make you weak. Everything around you encourages comfort, distraction, gratification, laziness. The system wants you docile. It wants you dependent. It wants you predictable. Weakness is profitable to the world, but destructive to the man. So if you don't actively reject weakness, you passively become a victim of it. You can't choose to be neutral. There is no neutral. You are either getting stronger or weaker every single day. You are either moving toward the man you want to become or drifting to the man you fear becoming. And many men fool themselves into thinking that rejecting weakness requires motivation. No. Motivation is the biggest lie society has sold to men. Motivation is emotional. Motivation is fleeting. Motivation disappears the second life punches you in the mouth. What you need is identity, an unbreakable belief that you are not the type of man who allows weakness to exist inside him. When you identify as a strong man, strong decisions become automatic. When you identify as a disciplined man, discipline becomes your default setting. Weak men rely on motivation. Strong men rely on standards. There will be days when you don't feel like being disciplined. Days where you don't feel like working, training, pushing, grinding. That's exactly why you must reject weakness. Because the life you want doesn't care how you feel. The success you crave doesn't care about your mood. Your goals don't adjust themselves based on your emotional state. Weakness wins the moment you let feelings overrule your mission. And the most dangerous thing a man can do is allow temporary emotions to dictate permanent outcomes. You have to build the internal voice that says no to weakness before it even speaks. The voice that tells you to get up when you feel tired. The voice that tells you to execute when you feel overwhelmed. The voice that reminds you that every man you admire, every champion, every leader, every warrior had moments of weakness, but they chose to reject those moments instead of living inside them. You aren't special because you struggle. You are special when you dominate the struggle. Weakness isn't defeated through thought. It's defeated through action. And every action you take either builds the warrior inside you or feeds the coward within you. There comes a moment in every man's life when he has to stare himself in the mirror and finally be honest about what he sees. Not the filtered version he pretends to be for the world, not the excuses he repeats to feel better, not the delusions he hides behind to stay comfortable. I'm talking about the raw, unfiltered truth of who he is when nobody's watching. That moment is uncomfortable. It's painful. It exposes the parts of you that you've been ignoring for years. But this moment is also the most powerful opportunity you will ever have, because this is where the transformation begins. This is where you decide to reject weakness in every form it tries to take inside you. Weakness isn't always loud. It doesn't announce itself. It creeps in quietly. It shows up as hesitation, procrastination, fear of responsibility, avoidance of growth. It disguises itself as rest, as taking it easy, as I'll start tomorrow. Weakness is a parasite that feeds on your potential while convincing you that you're doing just fine. And the only way to defeat it is to become brutally aware of every place it hides. Because if you don't identify it, you can't eliminate it. Most men don't fail because of external obstacles. They fail because they negotiate with their own weakness. They fail because they allow their feelings to decide their actions. They fail because they let comfort win small battles every single day until one day they wake up realizing they've lost the war. They've become average. And the most dangerous part is, they don't even realize when it happened. Weakness doesn't ruin your life instantly. It destroys you quietly, slowly. Through the decisions you think don't matter, you skip the gym once. You decide to sleep in once. You ignore your goals for a day because you're tired. You give in to distraction because it feels good. Each decision feels small, harmless, justified. But every time you choose comfort over discipline, you are practicing weakness. You're teaching your mind that losing is acceptable. You're allowing yourself to shrink mentally and physically without even noticing. And day by day, that becomes your identity. Weakness becomes who you are. Rejecting weakness isn't about becoming perfect. It's about refusing to tolerate the parts of you that hold you back. It's about treating your own excuses like the enemy. It's about telling yourself the truth even when it hurts. It's about doing the thing you least want to do, especially when you don't feel like it. That's the moment strength is built. Not in comfort, not in motivation, not in easy wins. Strength is built in the moments where you choose the harder path. When you choose discipline over temptation. When you choose action over emotion. When you choose growth over comfort. Weakness thrives in silence. Strength thrives in action. Weakness begs for sympathy. Strength demands responsibility. Weakness wants validation. Strength wants results. Weakness attaches itself to your identity only if you let it. The world has enough weak men. Enough men who complain, blame, and hide behind circumstances. Enough men who fold the moment pressure hits. Enough men who settle for a life far beneath what they're capable of. The world is drowning in weak men because weakness is easy. It feels good. It's addictive. And the modern world encourages it everywhere. Rejecting weakness is rebellion. It's choosing to rise when everyone else sits. It's refusing to be owned by your impulses. It's the act of taking back control of your mind, your habits, your purpose, your future. It's making a promise to yourself that you will not let the weaker version of you run your life anymore. That version had its time. It gave its excuses. It took its shortcuts. And now it must die so the stronger version can be born. Every man has that choice, but only a few have the courage to make it. Listen carefully, because this is the turning point of everything you think you know about strength. Weakness doesn't start in your body. Weakness doesn't start in your habits. Weakness doesn't even start in your surroundings. Weakness begins in one place only: your mind. Before a man becomes physically lazy, before he becomes emotionally fragile, before he becomes a slave to comfort, he first becomes mentally weak. And the tragedy is that most men never notice the moment it happens. It doesn't arrive loudly. It doesn't announce itself. It creeps in silently, quietly, disguised as logic, disguised as excuses, disguised as harmless thoughts that whisper, "You can do it tomorrow, you can rest today, you've already done enough." That whisper is the voice that destroys kings. Every man who fails in life first failed in his own mind. Every man who let himself go, every man who ruined his potential, every man who watched his life collapse. All of them had one thing in common. They allowed weakness to take root in their thoughts. And once your mind is compromised, the rest of you will follow. The body obeys the mind. The habits obey the mind. The destiny obeys the mind. So when a man loses control of his mind, he loses control of his entire existence. When you reject weakness in your mind, something powerful begins to happen. Your thinking becomes disciplined. Your emotions become disciplined. Your behaviors become disciplined. You start to respond instead of react. You start to lead instead of follow. You start to build instead of complain. The world doesn't get easier, but you get stronger. You stop negotiating with your excuses. You stop entertaining emotional softness. You stop giving space to thoughts that are not aligned with the man you are trying to become. Weakness only exists when you give it permission. Strength only exists when you command it, and you must understand that rejecting weakness is not a one-time decision. It is a daily battle, a silent battle, a private battle, a battle no one will applaud you for. When you wake up in the morning and your mind says stay in bed, that is weakness. When you tell yourself you will start your goals next week, that is weakness. When you avoid discomfort, avoid responsibility, avoid pressure, that is weakness. And the more you allow it, the stronger it becomes. Weakness grows through repetition the same way strength does, but the man who conquers himself, the man who recognizes the enemy in his own thoughts, that man becomes unstoppable. That man becomes dangerous in a world full of soft minds. He doesn't move emotionally. He doesn't break under stress. He doesn't crumble when life hits him. Because while everyone else was waiting to feel motivated, he was building discipline. While everyone else was looking for comfort, he was strengthening his character. While everyone else was running from hardship, he was running toward it, using it as fuel, using it as training, using it as a tool to harden his mind. You must learn to catch weakness in its earliest form when it shows up as a small thought. The thought that says it's okay to lower your standards just a little. The thought that says it's okay to skip your routine just this once. The thought that says maybe you're tired, maybe you deserve a break, maybe you're doing enough. Weakness always tries to sound reasonable. Weakness always presents itself as a gift. But weakness is a parasite. It feeds on your time, your ambition, your discipline, and eventually your identity reject it. Every time, without hesitation, without negotiation. Weakness cannot survive in the mind of a man who decides it has no seat at his table, no influence in his life, no authority over his actions. Because when you reject weakness at the mental level, you prevent it from ever appearing in the physical world. Weakness doesn't always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it slips in quietly, disguised as comfort, disguised as taking it easy, disguised as you deserve a break. It shows up as the little voice telling you to stay in bed for 5 more minutes, to skip the workout just this once, to avoid the difficult conversation, to ignore the uncomfortable truth. And that's exactly why it's so dangerous. Because a man rarely collapses from a giant blow. He collapses from the slow, unnoticed erosion of his standards day after day, until one morning he wakes up and realizes he's no longer the man he thought he was. Weakness is subtle. It hides inside habits, inside emotions, inside excuses. It shows up when you allow your feelings to dictate your actions instead of letting your actions discipline your feelings. Because the world doesn't care how you feel. It doesn't care if you're tired, sad, lonely, or unmotivated. The world only responds to results. And results require a man who rejects weakness in every form it tries to enter him. There is no strength without resistance. Muscles don't grow without pressure. Discipline doesn't grow without structure, and character doesn't grow without challenge. Weakness tries to convince you that discomfort is your enemy. Strength understands that discomfort is your birthright, the forge you must willingly step into. Every great man you've ever admired has stood face to face with weakness and said, "Not today." Not because he didn't feel it, but because he refused to bow to it. Weakness wants you lazy. It wants you guilty. It wants you emotional, distracted, inconsistent, and overwhelmed. It wants you soft, because a soft man is easily controlled. A soft man avoids responsibility. A soft man blames circumstances instead of confronting them. And once weakness convinces you that you are powerless, it wins without a fight. That is why rejecting weakness is not just a choice, it's a daily battle. A battle against the man you are right now. In order to become the man you need to be, you reject weakness when you force yourself to do the things that are difficult. You reject it when you show up even when nobody is watching. You reject it when you tell your mind, "We are doing this," and your mind doesn't get a vote. Most men let their feelings run their entire lives. They chase pleasure, avoid pain, and wonder why they feel empty. But a man who rejects weakness builds his life on actions, not emotions. He trains himself to move even without motivation, to work without applause, and to push without needing a reason beyond the simple fact that he said he would. Weakness hates consistency because consistency destroys it. Every time you do something you didn't feel like doing, you break weakness a little more. Every rep you push through, every hour you dedicate to growth, every sacrifice you make in silence, strengthens the man you are becoming and weakens the man you refuse to be. You're not fighting the world, you're fighting the part of you that wants comfort more than greatness. And the only way to win is to suffocate weakness with action. Weakness thrives when your standards are low. Strength emerges when your standards become non-negotiable. When you demand more from yourself than anyone else ever will. When you hold yourself accountable, even when nobody would blame you for quitting. When you walk into every day with the mindset that you will not allow anything soft, hesitant, lazy, or fearful to find a home inside you. That is how a man transforms. That is how he becomes respected. Disciplined, dangerous, and unshakable weakness will always try to enter through the cracks. Your job is to become a man with no cracks for it to get through. A man who is too focused to be distracted, too disciplined to be derailed, too resilient to be discouraged, and too determined to be stopped. Rejecting weakness isn't about pretending to be invincible. It's about refusing to let anything inside you stay small, fragile, or dependent. It's about building a version of yourself so strong that weakness becomes uncomfortable in your presence. When a man finally understands that rejecting weakness is not just a mindset, but a lifelong discipline, everything starts to align. It's the moment he stops negotiating with his excuses. The moment he stops allowing the softness of modern society to shape his standards. The moment he decides he will no longer let the world convince him that his comfort matters more than his greatness. Weakness doesn't disappear, it waits, it follows you. It hides in the corners of your mind whispering, take a break, sleep in, it's not that serious. And if you give it even an inch, it takes your entire life. That's why this final transformation begins inside your thoughts before it ever reflects in your actions. The world you live in has become engineered to make you soft. Everything is designed to keep you relaxed, distracted, unfocused, and dependent. Convenience replaces discipline. Entertainment replaces ambition. Validation replaces purpose. You scroll through feeds where everyone wants to feel good, but no one wants to be good. You hear people say, balance, when what they really mean is surrender. And if you're not conscious, if you're not awake, you fall into the trap of living like everyone else, weak, passive, directionless. But you are here because you refuse that path. You're here because something inside you still hungers for strength, for power, for control over yourself. That hunger is the signal you must obey. Weakness leaves clues. It shows up in the way you speak, the way you walk, the decisions you avoid, the responsibilities you delay. It's in the workouts you skip, the opportunities you ignore, the habits you refuse to confront. Weakness is not always obvious. Sometimes it disguises itself as self-care, rest, or patience. But deep down, you know the truth. You know when you're lying to yourself. You know when you're capable of more, but choosing to settle. And you know that every small compromise creates a future where you lose respect for the man you see in the mirror. Strength comes from removing those compromises one by one. You reject weakness by rejecting the behaviors that feed it. You stop letting your emotions lead your decisions. You stop letting fear decide your limits. You stop allowing temporary discomfort to dictate your future. Weakness thrives on immediate comfort. Strength thrives on long-term vision. Weakness wants you to avoid pain. Strength wants you to rise above it. Weakness wants you to blend in. Strength wants you to stand alone. Every great man in history was willing to endure pressure, isolation, criticism, and failure. Not because he enjoyed it, but because he knew that only through hardship does a man earn confidence, character, and competence. When you refuse weakness, you become dangerous, not to others, but to the version of yourself that could have wasted his life. You become the man who no longer reacts emotionally to every small inconvenience. You become the man who doesn't fold at the first sign of pressure. You become the man who can carry weight, responsibility, and expectation without collapsing. That is what separates men who talk from men who execute. The world respects strength because strength is rare. Weakness is everywhere. You can find it in every corner of society. But strength, real, disciplined, consistent strength, is so rare that when it appears, people cannot help but notice. Rejecting weakness means taking full responsibility for your life. It means admitting the mistakes you made because you allowed yourself to soften. It means being brutally honest about the areas where you let your comfort win. Then it means rewriting every habit, every routine, every standard you live by. It means treating every day like an opportunity to sharpen yourself. The moment you adopt that mindset, the world opens differently. You start attracting respect instead of pity. You start attracting opportunities instead of excuses. You start attracting discipline instead of chaos. You become a man whose presence carries weight because you have trained your mind, not just your muscles, and slowly, without realizing it, you become the man others look toward when everything falls apart. You become the man whose strength inspires others to rise. You become the man whose life reflects the truth that rejecting weakness is the first step to mastering everything else, and that, gentlemen, is the essence of rejecting weakness in every form. Life will always test you, every day, in ways you cannot predict. Weakness is not just a state of the body, it is a state of the mind, the heart, and the decisions you make. Every excuse you allow, every hesitation you embrace, every moment you tolerate mediocrity. Those are the cracks that life will exploit. You cannot afford to give them room. From the moment you wake up until the last moment before you sleep, your mission is to be relentless. Rejection, failure, heartbreak, and disappointment, they are not obstacles, they are tools. tools that forge resilience, determination, and power. They are reminders that you are alive, that you have a mission, and that every day you fail to sharpen yourself, you are letting the world pass you by. Remember, strength is not optional. It is mandatory. Not just physical strength, but mental toughness, emotional fortitude, and moral courage. Every choice you make should reflect the man you are striving to become. The man who never folds under pressure, never succumbs to laziness, never seeks comfort at the expense of greatness. The man who understands that life rewards only those who are willing to take it by force, with discipline, vision, and an unshakable belief in their own potential. And here's the secret that most men will never understand: rejecting weakness does not mean you live without fear or doubt. It means that you recognize those emotions, but you refuse to let them dictate your actions. It means that when the world pushes, you push back harder. When the temptation to quit arises, you push through. When everyone else falls, you rise. So take everything you've learned in this speech, every insight, every principle, every push towards self-mastery, and make it actionable. Transform your mind, your body, and your life. Build yourself into someone who is not just unbreakable in appearance, but unshakable in spirit. Someone who commands respect, demands excellence, and inspires others to reject weakness in their own lives, because at the end of the day, the only person responsible for your success or failure is you. Life will not hand it to you. No one will fight your battles for you. And if you allow weakness to exist, it will consume you. But if you reject it completely, relentlessly, and unapologetically, you become unstoppable. This is your life, your mission, your legacy. Weakness has no place here. Reject it, rise above it, and become the man you were always meant to be.